I got laid off a few weeks ago. In fact, you may have seen it in the news. I worked for a certain mouse-shaped company. The job was a dream come true. I was working with characters and worlds that I had loved my entire life. And in the span of one quick Zoom call, it was all just taken. So I did what I always do when I'm sad, or happy, or bored, or, well, you get the idea. I went to the movies. In 2008, the Wachowski Sisters, who at that point had helped give us the Matrix trilogy and V for Vendetta, brought the classic anime Speed Racer to the big screen. It was a visual feast with bright, colorful visual effects, heartfelt performances, and breathtaking action. And, well, people really hated it, at least until now. Speed Racer was trying to do a lot in 08. We were in a very different place with movies then, and we just weren't super into embracing the more fantastical elements of the source materials that were getting adapted. After all, this was the year of, what if Iron Man was real? What if James Bond was grittier? What if Batman was realer and grittier? Well, hold on. Those last two were technically sequels, so I guess even more real and gritty-er. You get the idea. And here was Speed Racer with its fantastical, almost plasticine looking sets, its overly dramatic camera moves, and its melodramatic performances. It was adapting the language of anime at a time before anime was the global powerhouse in entertainment that it is now. There were no One Piece Popeyes meals in 2008. There was a level of sincerity and fun that audiences in 08 just were not ready for. The movie was a massive financial and critical bomb, and it was out of theaters in just a few short weeks. Now, I had loved it at the time. I was one of those weird kids who was getting into anime before it was cool. I hate that I had to say that sentence, but it was true. And I had loved the original show growing up. I seem to remember watching it on Nickelodeon, I think. It's hard to remember, but Speed Racer was one of those shows that as a kid, I just sort of remember always being around the way the Looney Tunes were, if that makes sense. Others, as I've illustrated earlier, did not see it the same way, and like I said, the movie came and very quickly went. It was kind of whispered about in the years to come as a sort of if you know type of thing. So then, how did a campy, over-the-top movie based on a racing anime from the 60s become such an important piece of art to me after getting laid off from what was my dream job? Well, upon this rewatch, I really realized that Speed Racer isn't about racing. I mean, okay, it is on the surface, but really, it's about what it takes to make art in a world that really wants to strip that from you, and how you need to fight to do it anyway. There's two scenes in Speed Racer that really stuck out to me upon this rewatch. One is when Speed goes to reject the offer to race for Royalton Industries. After thinking it over, he realizes that the way they do things just isn't for him and his family. As he tells Royalton,
racing's in our blood. But for Pops, it isn't just a sport. It's way more important than that. It's like a religion.
Royalton proceeds to tell him that every race since the formation of the World Racing League has been fixed. That a small cabal of the richest people in the world have been fixing the races every year so that they can use whoever the winners and losers are as a way to fix stocks and line their pockets. And that if Speed wants to be considered one of the greats, he better learn how to play along. Watching the movie now, it really hit me that this scene was probably the way that the Wachowski sisters had been starting to feel, trapped in a system that likely wanted them to do one thing and one thing only in order to drive maximum profit and maximum returns. I can only imagine the calls that they were getting to pump out more Matrix sequels, and couldn't help but also think of how many artists get trapped in a system like this on a daily basis. Of course, the Wachowskis, though, went on to go make Speed Racer, not more Matrix sequels, because that's what artists do. They push back and make the art that they want. There's a scene a little further into the movie where Speed's mom, played by Susan Sarandon, tells a hurt Speed, beaten down by Royalton's speech and all the general corruption that he's found himself surrounded by, what it's like seeing him race and why it's important to her.
Some of the things you do, I feel like I'm watching someone paint or make music. I go to the races to watch you make art. And it's beautiful and inspiring and everything that art should be.
Speed and his family eventually go on to build the Mach 6, Speed's car in the final race, the way that they want to. They may not have all the fancy machines and automations that Royalton has, but they have their passion for racing, and they have each other, and ultimately, that's what wins them the race. Those two scenes really illustrated to me what this movie was all about. Now, when I got let go from my job, it wasn't by some mustache-twirling supervillain telling me that he controlled my art, and that if I wanted to make more, I better get in line. And unlike the Wachowski sisters, I wasn't beholden to producers and CEOs. At least not in quite the same way that they were. But when you go into the entertainment industry, there is a certain level of control you feel like you have to give up in order to make your art. After all, these companies control the purse strings. They control the characters. They control, well, everything. And if you want to make your art, you've got to play by their rules, right? But what if, like the Racer family, you didn't have to do things their way? What if I didn't have to do things the way they wanted? The re-release of this movie couldn't have come at a better time. As I sat in that IMAX theater at 11 a.m. on a random Wednesday, just days after losing my job, I realized that I've got that fight in me and I'm gonna be okay. I wanted to make things my way. Will I probably need another job at some point? Yeah, YouTube isn't exactly paying the bills yet, unless you want to watch this a few times to ramp up those watch hours so I can get monetized, hint, hint. But that doesn't mean that I can't keep making art the way that I want to, even if sometimes it feels like the system doesn't want me to. In an age where media companies are consolidating at a rapid pace and AI is finding its way into everything, it feels like now more than ever, a movie like Speed Racer is needed to remind us all just what it takes not to just make something, but to also care about it deeply, and that at the end of the day, that's what matters above all else. Make the art you want to make. Who cares whether its visuals are garish or loud? If you care about it, if you love it, people will eventually find it. Even if, like Speed Racer, they find it a little late, like 20 years late. People may not have embraced this movie when it first came out, but I think there's a reason people are finally re-examining it and finding what's special about it. Sure, anime is more popular now than ever before, and after a deluge of gray blockbusters, people may be starved for color. But more than that, I think we're starved for hope. We're starved for art that shows us that things are gonna be okay, and that we, the little guy, can come out on top.